How you doing, Astarte Jones? It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Shalom, family. It's good to see you all here. I'm just going to do a quick live stream, um, just talking about, pastors in Christianity. It doesn't matter if they are priests or they're an evangelical. It really, truly don't matter when it comes down to them because many of us that have read the Bible, and I know many of you have read it multiple times. I have. And that's one thing about being in our walk. You have to be willing to learn. And being willing to learn means reading our scriptures and reading the Bible. And sometimes I've read it 4 times. And some of y'all read it more than that. But the bottom line is we know it way better than many of the folks that try to come up against us. So, one thing the Most High wanted is he never wanted Gentiles to be pastors. Let me see something. Somebody's asking me a question. Okay. And there's a reason for that. If you notice, ever since they've been really heading the priesthood, especially here in America, really all over, but in America, religion, it never has been a good thing. Even when many people were attending the church, it still really wasn't good even then. They have never headed any kind of church and there was any righteousness up in the church. Remember, we know the Catholic Church heavily participated in our forefathers' enslavement. They have heavily participated in the ongoing racism that still happens in America. And during slavery, the white pastor was in the church telling them it was okay to treat us the way that they were treating us. It was okay. God was fine with the way they were treating us. Not to mention, they were full participants in lynchings. So their preacher man would be preaching a sermon, and the vast majority, and I learned this from doing my own family tree, the vast majority of lynchings occurred on a Sunday afternoon after these devils got out of church. Okay, so and I had to learn that myself. I did not know that initially. but it was right after church. When you start looking up dates, back in those times, it kept coming up Sunday, 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 Sunday. And the house of Esau, the house of Ham, these men were never supposed to be preaching in front of people. That's why the whole time they've been preaching, this is the kind of stuff that's been happening. Okay? This is what's been happening. Let me share my screen on this one. Okay, and even with Ham, it's also disastrous with Ham trying to be a preacher. This is the kind of stuff, and I've seen this several times, y'all, since I've been in the walk, where some pastor over in Africa will tell their congregation to eat something laced with poison or drink something laced with poison to prove that they love Jesus, white Jesus. They do it and they die. Okay. So this, when you see stuff like this, it is very apparent the house of Esau and the house of Ham and any of these people for that matter, they were never supposed to be priests. When our forefathers, remember, it have to be a descendant of Aaron. When you go back to Numbers 3 verse 10, you had to come from the line of Aaron. If you didn't, you can't be a priest. So we are looking at many of these men and women out here, and yes, women up in these churches preaching, and they should not be preaching at all. But you know what? No, if you go look at the stories, something like this has occurred in Africa multiple times, y'all, where a pastor will tell them to do some outlandish thing, and the people in their congregation will end up dying at something the pastor was requesting them to do. I started on this walk, y'all, back in 2010, and I have seen this multiple times happening out of the continent of Africa with religion. Okay, and what we absolutely can't forget are the mass graves that were found up in Canada that were ran by the Catholic Church. So you have both the priest and the nuns participating in mass killings. Now, I saw some of the pictures of the children. You saw our children sprinkled. You would see melanated children sprinkled in those pictures. So they take these indigenous children away from their family, claiming they're going to educate them, okay, and teach them the ways of religion. And they massacred these children up in Canada. They had to either assimilate or die, right? So again, you clearly see why the Most High was very explicit about who could be priest. You see the disaster it has been with Gentiles leading churches. It's been nothing but murder, and Catholic Church plays grape and just doing all kinds of heinous things. all throughout history. This is the way it's been. These people are not fit to be priests. That's why these things keep going on over and over and over. You're not going to learn nothing from these folks. Look, let me show you one more pastor, and I know y'all will remember this particular pastor. This pastor actually tried to come for me out on Twitter. Let's see if I can find his butt. Is this one? Yes. Yes, hold on, y'all. This pastor actually tried to come for me, and let me tell you why. Out on he didn't come on YouTube, but it was mainly out on Twitter. This is what he would do. He would post something out there trying to take a swipe at me. Now, the reason why Pastor Tony Spell out of Louisiana was doing this was because it must have been Christmas time, 2018. He was giving money out to people in his congregation. Everybody he gave, now he's got a pretty sizable black congregation, y'all. It's an integrated church. He got white people, black people, but it's quite a few black people that are part of his congregation. Now, many of us that have been Cyberdyne 100, thank you so much for the super sticker. Many of us that have been in the Christian church know that our people work in those churches, whether they are ushers or they're deacons or trustees or in the choir, or they are doing announcements for the church, working as a secretary. You know, our people are always a full participant when it comes down to working in the church. So if this man got black people in the congregation, you can best believe, you know, they're Sunday school teachers. Our people are always full participants and working in the church. We all know this, especially if you were in the Christian church. That's one thing. Our people will jump up and try to help and try to play some kind of role in the church. Well, Pastor Tony Spell was giving money out, giving gratitude to his congregation. Everybody Pastor Tony Spell gave money to were white. He didn't give one dime to anybody black in his congregation. If you go look at the video, he got a sizable black congregation. You know, there's a lot of black people there, but you know, he got white people there too. But everybody he gave money to were white. I called it out. I called him out for the racism that he stood and displayed that day. Oh, I dragged him. I did a video on it and everything back then. He must have saw the video and called himself trying to drag me out on Twitter. And he did it a couple of times trying to take a swipe at me because he didn't like what I said. But what I said was a fact. You got all them people in there and everybody that you decided to give money to. And I'm not talking about $100 here, y'all. It was thousands of dollars that he gave these white people in his congregation. He didn't give one red cent to any black person in his congregation, not one red cent. And yes, I called his Louisiana redneck ass out, and he hated it. He hated that I did that. And I don't regret it, and I don't take a thing back. But it just goes to show you the same kind of preacher there was down there during chattel slavery are those same kind of preachers that exist to this very day. Okay? So our people are still lost, y'all. They are still lost. Like I told some of y'all the other day, I was watching Every now and then, I'll pop in and I'll look at some of the camp videos just to see what they're talking about. They're always talking about the same thing, but I came across one, and it was a black woman. Now, I don't know what island she came from, but she was from the islands, and they were trying to tell her that, Cesare Borgia was not real. This woman had to be, I would say, just looking at her, just guessing, probably in her 70s. That woman went off on these men from the camp. She went off. She lost her mind over that. But you have to understand, we are in the final days. If people like her don't wake up, they probably will never wake up. We have to also face the fact that there's going to be a lot of our family and friends that are not going to make it because they're still stuck on that white Jesus. They're stuck on it. And, and it just goes to show you that woman, she was so conflicted. You can see how there's going to be a lot of people we talk to, and you're not going to get through to them at all. You're not going to get through to them, y'all. And we just have to accept the fact there is a reason why the Most High don't want those folks. He don't want them. And I had to really come to that realization about my own family. When the lockdown happened, I was like, maybe this will cut the ties to Christianity. No, they just jumped online and did the online church thing. So it is just no waking them up. It is no waking them up, y'all. And let me tell you something. Yes, and yeah, I do realize there are black pastors that do many of these same things. How many times have we seen them and they're having an affair or sleeping with multiple women in the church? Yeah, because they've been exposed to all this corruption since we've been over here. So yeah, they're corrupt too. So yeah, I mean, you're not let's just say you're just not better off being in any of their churches, regardless to who is leading the church. But these dudes that are Gentiles, they should have never been in front of anybody preaching, ever. So, in these final days, as we see these things unfold, like with the Catholic Church, the one I showed you first, it is really up to the people to get themselves out of these situations and not sit there and continue to be in the presence of, really, it's just a criminal church. The church is criminal. Come on. I mean, I don't even know why these people are trying to duck and dodge the abuse that has gone on there when it's been going on, y'all, for centuries since they've been in existence. This stuff was going, you can best believe, even when they were putting their heads together in regards to enslaving our people, they were doing all this stuff back then too. They were doing it back then. Yeah, well, Joel Osteen, I knew he was full of crap when Hurricane Harvey happened, and he didn't want to let them people in his church. He really exposed himself back then. He really did. He didn't want them people there messing up his precious mega church. He didn't want them sleeping there. He didn't want none of that. Man was not about helping people. It was very obvious. Joel Osteen was never about helping people. He's about helping himself. Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's how they are in my family too, Venus. You can't tell them nothing. So I got to the point I don't even talk to them about it anymore. I do my walk and I just keep it going. They have a choice to stay or leave Christianity alone, and they have elected to stay. And I accept that. I accept that, you know? But as we get further towards the end, we are really seeing so many reasons why technically we never should have been in these churches at all. There's no real good leadership in these churches. So, this story on Baltimore just came out probably like the very end of September when this came out, but it's been archdioceses all over the country, even out of where I came from in Philadelphia. One of those priests got arrested. But if you notice, that's why I don't listen to these people talking all that law and obey and all that crap they be saying, because you got criminals all through Christianity and Catholicism, and it's barely a handful of them have gone to jail. They don't put these people in jail, and very few. That being said, you have no business being up in anybody's face preaching about laws and obeying and complying. You don't make any of these priests in the Catholic Church comply. You don't be screaming for them to follow the law. You don't be screaming to them to obey. You don't be saying none of them things to them. And what they're doing is far worse than any black man or woman is doing out here. So if you're not going to say nothing to them, you can keep your judgmental, preachy behind out of our faces. Plain and simple. They have no right to be up in our faces and all of this is going on right under their noses. Tell these priests to comply. Tell them to do that. So, y'all, that's all I wanted to say on this subject matter. I pray that each and every one of you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and may the Most High keep his most powerful protection around you always. Shalom, family.